What up, Internet? What state is your nervous system in right now? How can you tell? I'm Daniel, a licensed professional counselor and hobby baker, and today we're making a beginner sourdough loaf and talking polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, who spent some time in the research on attachment with still face experiments. He focused primarily on heart rate variation, or the ability for the heart rate to return to a normal resting rate after being elevated in distress. What he found was that the more securely attached infants seemed to return to a normal resting heart rate quicker than insecurely attached infants. Porges began to focus on the autonomic nervous system's role in regulating emotions, and specifically the vagus nerve's impact on bodily responses to stress and social interactions. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It controls many things like heart rate, digestion, anything that's going on in the background that your body's doing. Your vagus nerve is probably touching it in some way. So essentially, Porges found that the vagus nerve attempts to detect safety and danger cues in the environment based on things like body language, visual, and verbal cues from others. And so a traumatized individual may have almost a faulty detection system that might be more vigilant, looking for danger cues, to the point that it might even start to misinterpret cues that it thinks is dangerous, but actually isn't. And so when the nervous system says something is safe or something is dangerous, the ability to accurately detect those cues and interpret them. Stephen Porges coined a term for this he called neuroception. So polyvagal theory suggests that when we're in a calm and safe state, we are in what you might call the ventral vagal. I'll put a little chart up that may help with the visual. And so this green zone, we're able to be more grounded, present, curious, maybe compassionate, or feel a sense of connection. And so when the nervous system starts to sense some level of danger or threat, we may move up into the yellow zone, or the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system response. And so these are more primal responses. The idea is that the nervous system activates or becomes mobilized in effort to deal with the threat until the threat is gone, whether that be moving towards it in a fight response or moving away from the threat in a flee response. Polyvagal theory suggests that if the arousal continues and we can't get rid of the threat or avoid the threat or escape the threat, or if arousal is just so intense, we may go into the dorsal vagal response, which is a freeze or a shutdown, where we might feel shame or dissociation or depression or helplessness, numbness. And so the goal of managing your nervous system does not mean you're supposed to be totally calm all the time. Porges describes combined states where we're in the ventral vagal, but also the mobilized response may be present. Examples might be going for a bike ride with a friend. Our nervous system needs to be mobilized and active to create movement, but we're also feeling connected at the same time. Similarly, relaxing in a hammock might have the ventral vagal with the immobilization response, or the dorsal vagal. Our nervous system moves in and out of different states many, many times throughout a given day. Noticing where our nervous system is can help us learn how to cope better in different moments. For example, I often talk to clients about an idea that a hyperarousal, if we're in the yellow zone, we are dysregulated. We may need to downregulate. Things like taking a deep breath, a mindfulness practice, slowing down can all be helpful in downregulating our nervous system. But if we're in a state of hypoarousal, these things may be less effective. We may need to upregulate first. So something like stretching or slow movement to activate the nervous system towards a mobilization response again, to then calm down. Maybe taking a walk, maybe tapping on our knees. Something that won't be so intense that it shocks the nervous system, but introduces enough movement to get out of that shutdown response. It's helpful to try to be aware of what state our kid's nervous system might be in. Something like making a big request to try something new or work through some difficult problem may be unreasonable in that moment if their nervous system is already in a state of arousal. As we learn to manage our nervous system, it's often helpful to understand what kind of thoughts do I think when I'm in the green zone, or the yellow zone, or the red zone. And also, what physical sensations can I notice when I'm in a state that I can be calm and connected? What physical sensations do I have in a hyperarousal or mobilization response? What physical sensations do I experience in a dorsal or shutdown response? For most of the clients that I work with, the physical sensations are the hardest things to be aware of at first. For some, they've spent some time doing things like yoga or mindfulness, and they're aware of what sensations are happening. But this is a great first step in managing our nervous system, is being aware of what physical sensations do I notice. And is there a sense of threat or danger, or is there a sense of safety in this moment? Because some sensations may feel uncomfortable or unpleasant, but they're not inherently threatening. Because we literally don't have the ability to be curious, or to be compassionate, or to feel connected. Another thing I might do with clients when discussing polyvagal theory is drawing a picture of a ladder and putting two rungs where we think about the top being that ventral vagal, the middle going down a rung being that fight or flight, and the bottom being that dorsal vagal. And on one side of the ladder, draw an arrow going up, and on one side, draw an arrow going down. And you can write on the sides what things you might do more likely or more often if you're in a green zone or a ventral vagal state. And for the arrow going down, writing out different things that might activate your nervous system into that fight or flight, and different things that might happen that get you to a more immobilization or shutdown response. For example, maybe a lack of sleep, or your kids yelling might get you in an upregulated state. And maybe you know you're in a dorsal vagal shutdown response when you find yourself doom scrolling through TikTok or Instagram. And on the arrow going up, maybe writing out those things that you can introduce a little bit of movement, and the things that you can do to downregulate once you're back in a sympathetic nervous system. This is an easy way to have a list of different coping skills that you might want to employ. But when we're in dysregulated states, we don't often think of these things. So that's why it's helpful to have them written out. So again, I'll leave you with this challenge. Think of times that you felt calm, safe, and could connect easily. What was the context around that state? How do you know when you're in ventral vagal? What do you notice in terms of physical sensations? What does hyper-arousal feel like? What does hypo-arousal feel like? Get to know your nervous system a little bit, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.